Welcome to the deep dive. You know how easy it is to scroll through feeds and just, well, feel like you're falling behind, seeing everyone else's highlights?
Oh, absolutely. That constant stream.
Well, our source today, it's called You versus You, the only competition that matters, basically argues that feeling, that race, it's kind of a misdirection.
Exactly. We're aiming to cut through that noise today.
Yeah, we want to unpack this whole you versus you idea and see what really clicks for, actual personal growth.
Forget trying to keep up with everyone else online. Today, it's about looking inward. We're really dissecting this concept that your biggest competitor, it's probably not who you think.
Okay, so let's dive right in. This illusion of external competition is almost automatic these days, isn't it?
It really is. You see someone else's win more money, better shape, fast results, whatever, and bam, comparison hits.
It's relentless. But the core argument here is bold.
Hmm.
You're not actually competing with those people.
And the reasoning behind that is, well, pretty fundamental.
Yeah.
You're the only one living your life, right? Dealing with the consequences of your choices.
Mm-hmm.
You're the only one who truly gets your sacrifices, your struggles, the silent battles nobody else sees.
Right, their success story. You're just seeing the shiny cover, not the messy chapters inside.
Precisely. Their perfectly curated feed doesn't show the late nights, the doubts, maybe the pure luck involved sometimes.
So if we ditch that external yardstick, which is often, let's face it, pretty warped,
Yeah.
what's the alternative? Where should the focus be?
It boils down to personal evolution. True success, according to this idea, isn't about beating others. It's simpler and harder. Are you better today than you were yesterday?
That's the real metric then.
That's the argument. It's the one that truly counts for genuine progress.
Which leads us neatly into this idea of understanding your yesterday self. It sounds like taking a really honest look back.
Yeah, an inventory. Not to beat yourself up, definitely not that, but to get a clear baseline. Where are you actually starting from today?
So honest self-assessment is key.
Absolutely. Who were you yesterday? Think about your habits, your mindset. Did you follow through on what you intended?
Or did you skip that workout you promised yourself? Put off that important call?
Exactly, those things. The source points to specifics like, hitting snooze instead of getting up, procrastinating, breaking those small promises to yourself.
Those seemingly minor things.
Yeah, but they often reveal where the real friction is, where you're actually competing against your own inertia or habits.
Recognizing those patterns isn't about failure, though, is it?
Not at all. It's about intelligence gathering, intel for the next move.
I liked the concept of the daily rematch. It's not starting over from scratch every day.
Right. It's starting from where you are now, but armed with the lessons from yesterday. You're starting from a stronger position, hopefully.
A little wiser, maybe a little more aware of your own pitfalls?
Exactly. You leverage your history. Past wins are proof you can do it. Past stumbles show you where the tricky spots are. That yesterday you isn't an enemy to shame.
But your main opponent.
Your primary sparring partner, yeah. The one you aim to outperform, even slightly, each day.
Okay, this feels connected to what the source calls the mirror test for self-honesty.
Mm-hmm. And it's more than just, looking in the actual mirror. It's that moment of real self-confrontation. No filters.
Like your personal truth serum.
Kind of, yeah. Because external feedback, people's opinions, that can be managed or skewed.
Mm-hmm.
But that internal look, it demands honesty.
You have to face your own actions directly. Strip away the excuses.
Totally. And the questions that suggest asking are, well, pretty direct.
Like, am I genuinely proud of today? Did I really give my best effort, or did I just, coast?
Did it show up even when it was hard? When I didn't feel like it?
Yeah, you can't really hide from those answers when it's just you and your reflection, metaphorically speaking.
The mirror becomes this symbol of unavoidable truth, right?
Yeah.
You might rationalize things to others, but facing yourself, that requires integrity.
That's where the real work happens, isn't it? That personal reckoning.
Precisely. Which brings us to discipline.
Ah, yes. The source frames discipline as the highest form of self-respect. That's a powerful statement. Why discipline specifically?
Well, the interesting angle here is that discipline isn't about punishment or rigid external rules. It's about honoring the commitments you make to yourself.
Okay.
When you consistently do what you said you do for yourself, you're basically validating your own goals, your own well-being. You're saying, I matter.
That makes sense. It builds that inner strength.
It really does. And the source uses that analogy, building confidence brick by brick. Each kept promise is another brick.
It's about that internal validation, knowing you can actually rely on yourself.
Consistency is everything there. Every time you choose the slightly harder thing that aligns with your goals over the easier thing that doesn't,
Yeah.
you reinforce self-trust.
That internal scoreboard of kept promises.
Right, and that builds a much more solid confidence than, say, getting a certain number of likes or buying a fancy thing.
Which the piece calls out directly, those external markers, followers, possessions. They're mostly distractions from this core work.
They can be, yeah. They often represent a surface level of success that might not reflect any real internal fortitude or growth.
Mm.
Chasing them can definitely pull you off course.
So the real wins, the internal victories, are things like getting up early when the alarm goes off.
Exactly. Or pushing through that last rep at the gym, choosing the healthy meal when junk food is calling your name.
Those small, daily choices, the internal battles.
That's where you forge resilience. Choosing growth over comfort, long-term goals over instant gratification. They seem small, but they compound massively over time. They shape your character.
No, something that really struck me was the focus on small wins. It's so easy to get bogged down by huge goals and just miss the power of tiny steps.
Oh, definitely. It reminds me of that whole, journey of 1,000 miles, starting with a single step idea.
Exactly. The source really hammers home that big transformation. It's not usually the sudden lightning bolt.
No, it's the sum total of consistent, incremental progress, micro victories. We often overlook them, but they're the building blocks.
And the examples are so relatable. Drink one more glass of water, read one page, take one tiny action on a big project.
They seem almost insignificant alone, don't they?
Totally.
But think of it like compounding interest, or a snowball. Each small win adds a little mass, builds momentum. It gets easier to keep rolling.
So the core task isn't some massive overhaul overnight.
No, it's just aiming to edge out yesterday's self, even by a tiny bit.
That feels much more doable, actually. Less intimidating.
Right. It shifts the focus from this giant, maybe overwhelming future goal to a concrete, manageable action today.
Yeah.
And that fuels you for tomorrow, creates a positive loop.
Okay, but then there's the flip side. The source talks about how detrimental comparison is, calls it a thief of joy, momentum, peace.
Yes, most of us know that feeling, right? Scrolling social media, suddenly feeling like you're not doing enough, not good enough.
That immediate gut punch of inadequacy.
Comparison is just toxic often.
Mm-hmm.
It breeds envy, dissatisfaction, even when you're making good progress yourself. It yanks you right out of your own journey.
And that point about comparing your own messy behind-the-scenes reality with someone else's polished highlight reel. So true.
It's completely spot on. We never see their full picture. The struggles, the doubts, the sheer hard work, maybe the advantages they had.
You're comparing your raw footage to their final edited movie trailer.
Exactly. It's an unfair fight you can't win. It's demoralizing. It's not reality.
So the advice is, tune out that external noise. Focus instead on the gap between where you are now and where you could be, your potential.
That's your real battlefield, your arena for growth, bridging that gap, not worrying about someone else's race.
Which leads into this idea of a continuous cycle of self-improvement, like constant reinvention.
The piece uses this image of resisting old patterns as a kind of rebirth.
Every time you choose the new, better behavior over the old, comfortable, limiting one, you're shedding skin.
Something like that. You're actively breaking free from old anchors. It's a conscious choice.
And it contrasts things like old you makes excuses, new you finds solutions, old you gives up easily, new you perseveres.
It's about those deliberate choices in the moment, again and again, choosing growth over comfort, action over stagnation.
It's like each step forward is a symbolic, letting go of the less effective parts of your past self.
Yeah, sort of quiet funeral for the habits that didn't serve you. It's continuous evolution driven by that conscious choice to be better.
And importantly, this often happens without fanfare, right? No external applause necessary.
The fuel is internal. It comes from integrity, from wanting to align with your values, from that deep desire for personal evolution, not from needing likes or validation.
Which brings us right to internal validation being the ultimate standard, getting off that treadmill of seeking external approval.
Because external approval is fickle, isn't it? It depends on others, on things outside your control. But that true, lasting confidence, that sense of worth, it's built from the inside out. Knowing you're living by your own principles, striving towards your own definition of progress.
So instead of constantly looking sideways, asking, how am I doing compared to them?
The question becomes internal. How am I doing compared to me yesterday? Am I moving forward?
Your own progress becomes the benchmark.
Exactly. You become your own reference point. Your growth is measured against your own potential, your own past performance. It's about self-reliance, taking ownership.
And the source suggests there's real power in that. Almost invincibility, it says, from mastering this internal game.
Well, when your sense of progress and worth comes from within, you're just less vulnerable, aren't you? The opinions of others, the external comparisons, they lose their sting.
That inner resilience gives you a solid foundation to keep going, regardless of external noise.
Definitely. It fuels perseverance.
Okay, so to wrap up, the source offers some practical tools, actual things we can do daily.
Yeah, which is great. It makes the whole concept less abstract, more actionable, frameworks for putting you versus you into practice.
First up, a morning check-in. Asking yourself, basically, what would my strongest self do today? And then aiming for that.
I like that. Setting a clear intention based on your best self, your values, your goals for the day. It helps guide your choices.
Then, an end-of-day review. Taking a moment to reflect. Did I make progress towards my own goals today? Where could I maybe align better with that strongest self tomorrow?
Reflection is crucial for growth, isn't it? See patterns, learn from mistakes, celebrate wins, adjust course. It's that essential feedback loop.
And finally, a you versus you journal. Tracking habits, wins, setbacks. Not for judgment, the source stresses, but for data.
Right, because you can't really manage what you don't measure. It becomes a logbook of that internal battle you against comfort, laziness, fear, excuses.
Seeing the trend lines, even small upward ones, must be motivating. Or seeing where you keep tripping up.
Exactly. It provides objective evidence of your evolution or highlights the areas needing more focus. Powerful stuff.
So bringing it all together then, it really does seem to boil down to that daily internal contest. Committing to being just slightly better than yesterday.
Precisely. Every single day is a new round, a fresh opportunity for that rematch. Small steps, consistent effort.
It's a demanding path, for sure, but the rewards seem internal and profound.
The source makes that clear. Maybe no trophies or external accolades, but the transformation within you. Becoming that person who knows they can rely on themselves, who feels genuinely capable.
That's the real prize, that feeling of becoming unstoppable in your own right.
That intrinsic growth, that quiet confidence, it's arguably far more valuable and lasting than any external cheerleading.
So as we wrap this deep dive, maybe the key takeaway is to just remember who your real competition is. It's not out there on a screen.
It's right here. It was you yesterday.
Thanks for exploring this with us today.
Until next time.